Hi, and welcome to Scrum by the Book. As agile ways of working continue to grow within organizations, many leaders understand the benefits of working with agile methodologies such as Scrum. But sometimes these leaders don't understand how they work. This video is a detailed explanation of Scrum by the Book. I have made it to give anyone who have heard of Scrum and doesn't really know what it is a way of broaden their horizon. This detailed explanation consists of an initial quick overview followed by an in-depth look at all the details. If you after watching this is in need for only the brief overview, please watch my shorter video named Scrum by the Book, an overview. There's a link at the end of the video to my YouTube channel where it can be found. I'm Per Beining. I work as an Agile transformation coach and is involved with Agile and Scrum training. Please get back to me either in the comments, by email or by Twitter, should you have suggestions for how I could improve my worldview or interpretation of Scrum by the Book. Please enjoy! Scrum is an iterative, incremental approach for delivering complex products. The iterative part consists of the main iteration, which in Scrum is called a sprint. It's time-boxed and has a duration of 1 month or less. Another iterative part is on a daily basis, which in many drawings of the Scrum process is placed here at the top. Let's start out with looking at the 4 components that Scrum consists of. Roles, which I will draw as small stickmen and stickwomen with their names below. There's events, which I will draw as a cloud and label them inside. Some refer to these as ceremonies, and in a traditional approach, they probably would be called meetings. Then there's artifacts, which is all the stuff that is used and produced during a sprint. These are drawn like small illustrations with their name below. And finally, there is rules, which binds the roles, the events, and the artifacts together. The rules is not drawn explicitly, but is covered by my explanation. Let's start out by taking a brief look at the 3 roles. After walking through the end-to-end process, we will take a more detailed look at each of the roles, each of the events, and each of the artifacts and their characteristics. Let's start out with the end-to-end overview of the process. The first role is the development team. The development team are the ones actually delivering the incremental changes for our product. The second role is the Scrum Master. He, or in this case she, is responsible for the Scrum process. The third role is the Product Owner. This role is the owner of the requirements that needs to be developed and implemented by the development team. Let's move on to the artifacts and the events. In Scrum, the requirement catalog is called a product backlog. This is one of the most important artifacts in Scrum. I've drawn it like a funnel, quite heavily inspired by Henrik Knibergs' presentation on product ownership in a nutshell, which is an absolutely must-see video. I'll put a link at the end of the presentation, so haven't you seen it? Rush there. The product backlog is an ordered list of all known requirements, which in Scrum are called product backlog items. Sometimes they're abbreviated PBIs. The product backlog is visible to anyone. And like a funnel, there's a fixed amount of stuff that can come through. So prioritization is really important, as well as the quality of the description of each of the product backlog items. Moving on to the next artifact. When a sprint is completed, the outcome will always be a potentially shippable product increment. Whether to release the new functionality or not is entirely up to the product owner to decide, but the outcome of the sprint must have an increment of suitable quality that makes it possible to release. So how do the development team, the Scrum Master and the product owner, all 3 together, also referred to as the Scrum team, move from the ordered list of items found in the product backlog to a potentially releasable product increment. The initial step is the event called sprint planning. This is where we plan the work to be performed in the sprint. The outcome of the sprint planning is a sprint backlog. The sprint backlog consists of the top prioritized product backlog items that can fit into the sprint, as well as a plan for delivering them. Another outcome is the sprint goal, which is an objective that will be met within the sprint through the implementation of the selected product backlog items. The sprint goal is used for guidance to the team during the build of the increment. Another outcome of the sprint planning is a breakdown of product backlog items into tasks. When the sprint planning has ended, the sprint backlog is defined, a sprint goal is set, and the sprint backlog items has been decomposed into tasks of 1 day or less duration. Well, then it's time for the sprint to start. During the sprint, there's a daily event. This daily event is called the Daily Scrum and is a 15 minutes time-boxed event where the development team synchronizes all of their activities and make a plan for the next 24 hours. As mentioned earlier, this event in many drawings of the Scrum model is placed at the top of the sprint iteration. I do though prefer to put it inside the main sprint iteration, so let's move it. The reason for this move is that during the daily Scrum all of the artifacts from the sprint planning are being considered, so I like to have them next to each other in the picture. The development team uses the daily Scrum to inspect progress towards the sprint goal and to inspect how progress is trending towards the work in the sprint backlog. Are we still on track, and will we actually be able to deliver as promised? A tool used for the measuring of the progress could be a burn down or burn up chart. The burn down chart gives an overview of how much work remains until the end of sprint compared to how much capacity we have left to do the work. As mentioned earlier, when a sprint is completed, the outcome will be a potentially releasable product increment. When a product backlog item or an increment is described as done, everyone must have the same understanding of what done means. This shared understanding is known as definition of done. When the sprint has ended, the product increment is reviewed. This event is called a sprint review. It's an informal meeting with the intent to elicit feedback and foster collaboration. As the last event in the sprint retrospective is held. This event offers an opportunity for the development team, the product owner, and the Scrum Master to inspect themselves and create a plan for improvements to be enacted on during the next sprint. And then it's time for the next sprint. And that starts, yeah, you guessed right, with the sprint planning, and then everything repeats itself again. During the sprint, another event is taking place. This event is called the product backlog grooming or product backlog refinement. The objective here is to add details to existing product backlog items, estimate the complexity of these, and prioritize them. So the product backlog at all times is fit and in a healthy shape. One final event is the sprint cancellation. This is not something that happens often, but sometimes the sprint goals become obsolete and the product owner can then decide to cancel the entire sprint and go back and start a new sprint planning. Finally, I've drawn a couple of additional roles into the picture. These are not officially roles in the Scrum framework and are most certainly not part of the Scrum team. They are outside, but I've included them just to give a complete overview. It's the other stakeholders and it's the organization. We will, in the coming detailing of the roles, event and artifacts, and the rules binding these together, touch on these two unofficial roles. One last important notice during the overview is that sometimes in Scrum theory we make reference to something called the Scrum team. The Scrum team consists of all the three official roles, the development team, the Scrum Master, and the product owner. After this walkthrough of the end-to-end overview of the different roles, events and artifacts in Scrum and how they are related, let's move all the way back to where we started and step into the different details of each of the different components. Let's start out with the development team. The development team in Scrum has a size of minimum 3 people going up to a maximum of 9, not counting the Scrum Master and the product owner. Should the person acting in the role of Scrum Master or in the role of the product owner be participating in the actual creation of the product increment, well, then that person also fills a role as a developer and must be counted as part of the development team. A key characteristic of the development team is that they are self-organizing as a team, so no one steps in and tells them what to do. As part of this self-organization, they also jointly figure out who is performing what work to reach the sprint goal. It's important to notice that it's only the development team's members that can decide on how to turn product backlog items into potentially releasable functionality. Not even the Scrum Master has influence on this. This is done to optimize the development team's overall efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency is that things are done in the right order, and effectiveness is that we do the right things. A lot of effort normally goes into optimizing the team's productivity, which rephrased would be to do as much work as possible. It's typically a lot easier to boost the value and benefits created for the business by the development team by looking at efficiency and effectiveness. In Scrum, the development team must be cross-functional, so they as a team, without external help, are able to create a product increment. The development team in Scrum is also jointly accountable for the work being done. It's not a project manager, a role that you'll observe not even exist in Scrum, or the product owner or the Scrum Master, but it's the team themselves that are accountable. This to many teams will reveal itself as one of the biggest differences from the way they have been working before taking on Scrum. As the product owner is the one responsible for the requirements, it's obvious that the development team only solves work coming from the product owner. Obvious in theory at least. But as many teams historically has been given work from a lot of different people in the organization, changing this pattern of saying yes to work not coming from the product owner can be hard, but it's a must to get Scrum to work. Daily Scrum is often referred to as the heart of Scrum. This daily recurring event is conducted by the development team. It's important to emphasize that this is the development team's meeting with the purpose to ensure that we as a team are on the right track and will be able to accomplish the sprint goal within the boundaries of the current sprint. The Scrum Master, as one responsible for the Scrum process, will make arrangements so everyone knows when and where daily Scrum is happening, which is the same time and same place every day. But should the Scrum Master not be present, the daily Scrum will start on time by the team themselves. The only title for a person on the development team is developer. This is regardless of particular domains of the work that needs to be addressed, like business analysis or testing. And in Scrum, by the book, there are no exceptions to this rule. This also means that there are no sub-teams. The estimates for the audit requirements found in the product backlog are given by the development team. These estimates are, amongst many other purposes, used by the product owner to prioritize what order the requirement should be developed in, with a look at the benefit that they will give and at what cost. One of the outcomes of the sprint planning is, as mentioned in this overview, the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is owned by the development team, which of course falls greatly in line with the accountability and self-organization of the development team. The creation of the sprint backlog is done collaboratively by the team. It could be facilitated by the Scrum Master, if the development team requests this, and supported by the product owner in regards to details and conversations about the detailed content of the different requirements. But the sprint backlog is created as collaboration between the members of the development team. After the creation of the sprint goal, the development team explains to the product owner and the Scrum Master how they expect to accomplish this within the upcoming sprint. The development team tracks what the remaining work for the sprint is on a daily basis. This is giving the team insight into whether or not it's likely that they will accomplish the sprint goal. This tracking could typically be done in a burn down chart. And that's the development team. The Scrum Master's responsibilities is split into two main areas. First one is as the owner of the Scrum process. This could be seen as a practical pair of hands making things happen. The other area is ensuring Scrum is understood and enacted, both on the Scrum team as well as throughout the organization. This is, in more general Agile approaches, referred to as the role of the Agile coach. As Scrum doesn't have such a role, this coaching part is the responsibility of the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master helps facilitate the different Scrum events. He or she helps the participants to understand the purpose of the event and also ensures that they are kept within the time frame. It's important to notice that it is facilitation that's the key here. And a key characteristic of a great Scrum Master is good facilitation skills. Luckily, facilitation is a skill set that quite easily can be learned. As part of the facilitation of Scrum events, the Scrum Master must ensure that the daily Scrum is held. The Scrum Master does not necessarily need to be present at the daily Scrum, but she makes sure that it's held. One characteristic of this event is that it's held at the same time and the same place every day. This is done to reduce complexity in the participants' calendars. As mentioned earlier, when looking at the development team, they are self-organizing and cross-functional. The Scrum Master is helping and coaching the development team in achieving this. Impediments, in whatever form and number they appear, are in most projects what could make or break its success, and of course how they are dealt with. The Scrum Master is helping the development team with removal of impediments. If the impediment is outside what the Scrum Master can remove on her own, then it's her facilitation skills that comes into play again. Involving and engaging the people that can remove the impediment are a couple of the techniques that can be used. As mentioned in the overview, the product backlog is a key artifact. It holds all the requirements. These are also known as product backlog items. The Scrum Master is helping the product owner in managing the product backlog. Part of this is helping the rest of the Scrum team to understand that clear and concise product backlog items are important. As paraphrased from Alice's encounter with the Cheshire Cat in Wonderland, one could say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So if you as the product owner is not clear on what you want, and you as a development team don't understand it either, end results could be anything, and often is. Coming from traditional approaches of project management, a lot of different people with all kinds of different agendas and often self-invented needs interacts directly with the development team. Telling them what they should and must do, that's not okay. The Scrum Master guides these people in understanding what interactions are helpful and which are not. In other words, when to stay away. When introducing Scrum to an organization, changing this type of behavior can be quite a hassle, but always worth the effort. The Scrum Master helps everyone to understand that with Scrum, we are working on a new set of rules and a new process with the purpose of maximizing the value created by the Scrum team. Sometimes this is also referred to as protecting the team from outside interferences. Even though this paraphrasing is correct, I personally don't like the underlying us versus them. The effective Scrum Master instead educates the outside organization into understanding that the focal point for any work is the product owner, and guides them to consult him, both to understand the product vision and to get transparency into when they could expect their requirements fulfilled, or denied if that's the case. As mentioned earlier, the second area of the Scrum Master's responsibilities is ensuring Scrum is understood and enacted both on the Scrum team as well as throughout the organization. Part of this is leading and coaching the organization in its Scrum adaptation and creating a plan for how Scrum is implemented throughout the organization. Processes can be clarified as either defined or as empirical. A defined process is determined by having a well-defined set of inputs that will result in the same output being generated every time. Empirical processes are built upon observing, experience, and experimenting. They are typically handling something complex and not very well understood. The Scrum framework is founded on empirical process control theory. The three pillars on which Scrum as an empirical process control is founded are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Three elements most of the Scrum events embed. Transparency is that everything is visible to anyone that has an interest. Nothing is hidden. Inspection is the effort to constantly verify that we are on track. Adaptation is the constant focus and change on how we can do things better. Part of the Scrum Master's responsibilities is to help employees and stakeholders to enact this empirical approach to product development. The Scrum Master is a practical pair of hands towards the process. She causes things to change with the purpose of helping the team increase its productivity. In bigger organizations with more than one Scrum team, the Scrum Master works together with the other Scrum Masters to increase the effectiveness of Scrum in the organization. Let's take a deeper look at the third role, the product owner. He's the owner of the requirements that needs to be developed and implemented by the development team. The product owner must know and communicate what our goals and mission for the product is. This is sometimes in more general Agile terms referred to as the product vision. Clear knowledge of our goals and mission is a very powerful tool for the product owner to prioritize the different requirements and their order in the product backlog. This knowledge is also enabling the product owner to reject a specific request for new functionality that falls outside the goals and mission. Outside the product vision, one could say. And even though it's never funny to be told, nope, you can't have that, it enables the one requesting the functionality to get on with their life, instead of waiting indefinitely for functionality that is so low prioritized that it will never be delivered. The three pillars on which Scrum, as an empirical process control, is founded are, as earlier mentioned, transparency, inspection, and adaptation. The transparency of Scrum is clearly present in the form of the product backlog where all the requirements reside. The product owner is responsible for managing the product backlog and its content. Each chunk of requirement is called a product backlog item. Besides ensuring that the product backlog items are clearly expressed, it's also the product owner's responsibility to ensure that the development team understands them. This understanding needs to be at a level that is detailed enough for the development team to implement the changes that is requested. The product owner is allowed to delegate the work with the product backlog to the development team or the Scrum Master, but he will always remain accountable for the product backlog and its content. A central role of the product owner is also to talk with other stakeholders. This could be related to discussions about upcoming functionality, based on requests for including new requirements in the product backlog. When a sprint has ended, it's entirely up to the product owner to decide if the product increment should be released. Another responsibility of the product owner is to track the overall work remaining for the project. This is at least done at the end of each sprint, at the Scrum event called Sprint Review. This status of where the project is from an overall point of view is of course communicated to the Scrum team as well as all other stakeholders and the rest of the organization. As mentioned when we looked at the overview, I have drawn a couple of additional roles into the picture. These are not official roles in the Scrum framework and are certainly not part of the Scrum team. They are outside. I have though included them to give a complete overview. It's the other stakeholders and the organization. As indicated earlier, the development team is shielded from unwanted interference from outside the Scrum team. This outside interference could come from other stakeholders. But in an ideal Scrum world, these other stakeholders would respect the rules and talk only to the product owner. In an ideal Scrum world, when approached by other stakeholders, the Scrum Master and the development team will always, kindly but firm, reject requests from other stakeholders and ask them to discuss it with the product owner. The organization is another of these two unofficial and outside roles. Again, living in an ideal Scrum world, the organization respects the product owner's decision. Another prerequisite in the ideal Scrum world is that the organization is structuring and empowering the development teams to be self-organizing and self-managing their work. And that's all there is, at least when talking about the rules of Scrum. Let's move on and take a look at the details behind the events. Paraphrased, one could say that events are the pre-scheduled meeting points for everyone on the Scrum team. In Scrum, predefined events are important to have and uphold to be able to create regularity and minimize meetings. Events are always time-based with a maximum duration and a clear purpose to avoid waste of time. And when looking at the three pillars of Scrum, the events offers great opportunities to 1. Inspect, 2. Adapt, and 3. Give transparency. It's often most obvious in the case that events are omitted, the result is immediately reduced transparency. Let's take a look at the main iteration. In Scrum, as you probably recall, this is called a sprint. The sprint is a container for all other events. One of the goals in choosing sprint length, whether it should be 2 weeks or 1 month, is to keep it as small as possible. This is in order to keep cost of failure low, keep complexity low, decrease risk, avoid changes to the planned work. The shorter period we plan for, the lower the risk of being forced to change it, and it gives predictability. Depending on the domain though, sometimes it's not possible to deliver anything of value within the chosen sprint length. This could be an indication that the sprint length is too short. During the duration of a sprint, scope may be clarified and renegotiated with the product owner. As the development team work through the sprint backlog, they get smarter. Hence, good reason to discuss the solution with the product owner to ensure as much value is created as possible. Important though is that no changes are made that would endanger the sprint goal, and another important focus is that quality goals do not decrease. Throughout the sprint, the development team is tracking the work remaining in the sprint backlog. The sprint is a time box and has a duration of maximum 1 month. As you probably recall from the overview, there's an event where the planning of what is going to be created during the sprint. This event is called a sprint planning. Input for the sprint planning are several artifacts. It's the latest product increment. The development team needs this to extend with more functionality. It's how many development days we have available during a sprint, or in other words, the projected capacity of the development team. Knowledge about past performance is also necessary to be able to estimate what is possible to achieve during the upcoming sprint with the projected capacity we have. The definition of done is also used as input. If it's not clear to everyone when product backlog items or the product increment is done, how can we know when to stop working on it? It's used to help the development team decompose all tasks needed to deliver the requirements. And finally, the product backlog, where the ordered product backlog items are taken from. The sprint planning event is, as most Scrum events, an opportunity to inspect and adapt. Outcome from the sprint planning is a clear picture for the whole Scrum team of what can be achieved, and how the development team has planned to do the chosen work. Artifacts supporting this is the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog consists of the selected product backlog items from the product backlog and a plan for how it will be achieved. Also, the sprint goal is part of the artifacts being delivered. The product backlog items is broken down into manageable chunks called tasks. The sprint planning is, as all Scrum events, a time box. It has a duration of maximum 8 hours for a 1-month sprint. For shorter sprints, it's probably not that much. On a daily basis, the team meets up for one of the most important Scrum events when it comes to inspection and adaptation. This meeting is the daily Scrum. Outcomes of the sprint planning are the sprint backlog and the sprint goal. The first one, the sprint backlog, contains, as mentioned a few times earlier, the highest prioritized product backlog items and a plan for delivering them. Its content is self-organized by the team, and the product backlog items are decomposed into tasks of 1 day or less. The second outcome, the sprint goal, is a definition of what to build during the sprint. The purpose of the sprint goal is to cause the team to work together rather than on separate initiatives. The goal of the daily Scrum is to optimize the probability for the team to reach its sprint goal. The inspection part is done through inspection of progress and trends towards achieving the sprint goal. And if the trend shows that the teams cannot achieve the goal, adaptation is needed. The benefits of the daily Scrum is that it improves communication, it eliminates other meetings, it identifies impediments, it promotes quick decision making, and it improves the development team's knowledge. Besides those benefits, it's a mechanism to help improve self-organization of the development team. The daily Scrum is held at the same time, the same place, with the same agenda, every day. The agenda for every team member is to answer the questions of how will I help the team meet our sprint goal. This is done by answering 3 questions: since last, until next time, and impediments/help. Since last, I have brought us closer to the goal by doing this. Until next time, I will bring us closer to the goal by doing that. And impediments, I need help with something to bring us closer to the goal. Who can help me? The daily Scrum is a time box of maximum 15 minutes. Another recurring Scrum event during the sprint is the product backlog refinement. Sometimes also in more general Agile terms referred to as the backlog grooming. The goal for this event is to refine the highest prioritized product backlog items of the product backlog. This refinement should be done to an extent where taking a product backlog item into a sprint can be done confidentially and with low risk. The Scrum team decides how and when this event happens, as well as how many times it occurs during a sprint. A maximum of 10% of the development team's capacity can be used for this. Part of the activities in the product backlog refinement event is review and revise the product backlog item, for instance by adding details to them, estimating the effort needed to develop the product backlog items. In rare occasions, the sprint goal becomes obsolete. The product owner then can decide to cancel the entire sprint. This Scrum event is called a sprint cancellation. During the event, the product backlog items that are done are reviewed. If they are releasable and the product owner accepts these, well, then they can be released. Remaining product backlog items are re-estimated and put back into the product backlog. And then it's time to start a new sprint. A sprint is ended with 2 Scrum events. The first one is called a sprint review. It's an informal meeting where the product owner explains which product backlog items are done and which are not done. The development team discusses the learnings. What went well, what problems did we face, and what solutions did we find to solve these. The development team is demoing the work that is done. That's why this event in other Agile processes sometimes is named the sprint demo. Another outcome of the Scrum Review event could be other input for the coming sprint planning. Part of the activities also include review of any changes in market and changes in potential use of the product that's being produced. The product owner invites the key stakeholders to participate in the event. This is one of the few Scrum events where people outside the Scrum team are participating. Product owner tracks total work remaining at least at every sprint review. He compares it with previous sprint reviews to assess progress towards end goal by desired time left. This progress must be transparent to all stakeholders. This event, the sprint review, is also an opportunity to inspect and adapt. It's time boxed to a duration of maximum 4 hours for a 1-month sprint. As mentioned, a sprint ends with 2 Scrum events. The second one is called a sprint retrospective. The goal of this event is to make the next sprint more effective and enjoyable. The topic discussed in this event is how last sprint went regarding people, relationship, processes, tools, and the outcome is what went well, potential improvements, and a plan for implementing these improvements. Review of definition of done could also be part of the event to increase product quality. Again, this event is an opportunity to inspect and adapt. It's time boxed to a duration of maximum 3 hours for a month sprint. After this detailed look at the Scrum events, it's time to take a look at the artifacts of the Scrum framework. As you already know by now, in Scrum the requirements catalog is called a product backlog. The content of the product backlog must be visible. Anyone should be able to see it. It must be transparent and clear to all. Anyone should be able to understand its content. It should be an ordered, prioritized list. It must be possible to see what is most important, what is least important, and everything in between these two. It should be dynamic. It is in constant change and evolves over time. And it should be able to show what the Scrum team will work on next. The attributes of the product backlog items are description. What is it that needs to be done and why? Estimate. How much effort is involved in delivering this? Value. What is the benefit of getting this? Order. How is it prioritized compared to the other product backlog items? Grouping. Is it part of a group of several requirements? And is it ready or not for the next sprint planning? In Scrum, we employ a strategy of giving most attention, most time in grooming, to the highest prioritized product backlog items. So the higher priority a product backlog item has, the clearer and more detailed the description should be, and the more precise the estimate should be. This makes sense as the highest prioritized items are the next ones that should be included in the coming sprint planning. And the opposite can be said for the lowest prioritized product backlog items. They have fewer details and rougher estimates. When changes in business requirements, market conditions, and technology occurs, this will immediately affect the product backlog and its content. The final artifact within Scrum is the product increment. Sometimes it's also labeled with as many words as potential, releasable, useful, working, product, increment. The product increment must adhere to the definition of done criteria. These definitions could be on a system product level or on the organizational level. And that, more or less, is what the Scrum framework consists of. We have been through the 3 roles, the development team, the Scrum Master, and the product owner, all 3 together also known as the Scrum team. Beside the sprint, as it's the container of all the other events, there are 5 standard Scrum events: the sprint planning, the daily Scrum, the sprint review, the sprint retrospective, and the product backlog refinement, or grooming if you will. And then there's the exception, the sprint cancellation. And of course, Scrum consists of a handful of artifacts: the product backlog, the sprint backlog, the sprint goal, the burn down chart, and of course the product increment. As you perhaps recall from the beginning of the video, I mentioned that there were 4 components in the Scrum framework. So besides the roles, the events, and the artifacts, there are rules. The rules I've tried to describe in the explanation during my tour of Scrum by the book. And in the graphical overview, I've left these as bullets next to the roles, the events, and the artifacts. Do notice that this presentation is my interpretation of what Scrum by the book is. If you really would like to dig further into Scrum, then please download the Scrum Guide, the definitive guide to Scrum, the rules of the game. This is written and maintained by the fathers of Scrum, Sutherland and Schwaber, and it can be found at this URL. As mentioned in the overview, the format and look and feel of this presentation is heavily inspired by Henrik Knibergs' video on product ownership in a nutshell. This is an absolute must-see for anyone working with Scrum or any other Agile methodology. It can be found at this URL. Do also check out Henrik Knibergs' checklist for Scrum and his books. I also really like Mike Cohn's presentation on Scrum, and not just because I've been allowed to translate it into the Danish language. It can be found at this URL. This and other videos and presentations can be found at my YouTube channel. Check it out at this URL. And Agile inspiration in general can be found at my blog and suitcase at this URL. Finally, the end result of my sketching throughout this video is also downloadable as a graphical file. Find it at this URL. And as mentioned in the beginning of this presentation of Scrum by the book, please get back to me either in the comments, by email or by Twitter should you have suggestions for how I could improve my worldview or interpretation of Scrum by the book. And should there be other Agile concepts you would like to have explained in this format, please also let me know. That's it. I'm Per Beining. Stay agile in mind until next time we touch base. Bye bye.